What is up, humans of the cardboard? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we're back with Charmers. It has been a minute. I told you guys when I finally got the dogmatica stuff in, I would revisit this deck because I built it without it. I built the budget, more casual, fun version, but this one is a little more competitively driven, playing the dogmatica stuff because the synergy there is just so damn good. You will see as we go through it. And yeah, I think the deck's actually better than I thought. Like, honestly, doing some testing with the deck, doing a lot of test hands and stuff, I really was surprised at like how potent some of the plays were. Like, sometimes you just end on like 4 interruptions with like shitloads of follow-up, which I really appreciate. So the deck's really cool. I love the artwork for it. Obviously, the Spellcaster, Familiar, Possessed, and Charmers are so cool. And yeah, so without further ado, let's just get into this thing. Starting off with our Familiar Possessed lineup, we're on Asa, Win, and Lina. These felt like the best attributes to me. Obviously, we can't play Dark until we get the Dark Charmer. Maybe I'll update the profile when that comes out if I feel like it's different enough. But the Light Charmer is too good to take advantage of because if you ever play against a deck that does play Dogmatica, like reborning your opponent's Ecclesia is just like too good to pass up on. As well as also being too important because we need to make sure we have more consistent access to summoning out our Nefarious or Archfiend. We'll get to him in a little bit. And so really I felt like I didn't want to play 4. 4 just felt like too many. And so if I'm not doing that, I want to pick between Fire, Water, and Wind. And I felt like Wind gave me the biggest high roll potential. You could potentially be more in crazy stuff like Baron de Fleur, as well as potentially even Apex Avian in certain Bird Up and Flundereeze matchups. So there are like some crazy high roll cards you can reborn with this, and I didn't feel like Water and Fire really covered a ton of stuff that this card didn't. And so I decided to roll with Wind. Plus, she's the other one I had the awesome new artwork for. So yeah, definitely gonna be picking up the Lina though, definitely. So yeah, that's it for the Familiar Possessed lineup. Next up, we have triple copies of Fairy Tale Luna. This has become a staple in this deck. This card does so much for you. On normal summon, it searches any spellcaster with 1850 attack. So it searches your other Familiar Possessed, or it can search another copy of itself just to have follow-up for next turn. Really good. And secondly, it has another effect where it's just a walking interruption, and a pretty damn good one at that. So this card is a compulse. It is a worse compulse, but it is a compulse where it can quick effect target any monster your opponent controls and attempt to bounce it itself and the monster targeted back to the hand. The only downside with this effect is it has a clause where if your opponent wants to send another copy of that card with the same name from their deck or extra deck to the grave, they can negate this effect to bounce. So that can matter, but this card can just trigger every single turn. And it's not even once per turn on it. So if you summon multiple, you just have multiple bounces. So it's kind of cool if you can just keep it up and keep pressuring your opponent with it. Certain matchups, like usually you're just going to try and wait until you see your opponent summon something that you're like, oh, that is a one-of. We're going to bounce that. But yeah, really good card. The only thing that would make this card better is that it have 1500 defense. We will talk about that later on. Then we play some Earth Extenders because we need to be able to summon out our Nefarious or Archfiend. So we have triple Nefarious Archfiend, Eater of Nefariousness, and triple copies of Tenyi Spirit Adhara. They're just basically monsters, like Earth monsters that jump on the field really easily. You could potentially try and look at playing something like, what's his face? The level 5 Cyberse monster. I think it's Earth, and it just says like if you don't control any monster, you can summon him, and he also has the potential to like pop back row. I guess technically he's a little more imposing going second, but Adhara is fine. And it gives you access to a really interesting side deck play that I'll talk about at the end as well. Also, Nefarious or Archfiend has one more additional interesting effect that I might as well note because there is a really cool interaction if you can trigger it, but on your opponent's end phase, you can pop any monster you control to summon himself back from the grave. That's it, but we'll mention that a little later on with another card that it has some cool synergy with. Then we get to Nefarious or Archfiend. This card's great. This card is really weird, though. There's not a lot of cards like it. So this card says you can send a Spellcaster and a level 4 or lower Earth monster from your field to the graveyard to just special summon him out of the deck. This is not an activated effect. It's an inherent summon, so they have to have something like a Judgment or a Strike to negate this. They cannot negate the effect if they just have an effect negator. On summon, though, when it's summoned via this summoning condition, it can special summon any level 4 or lower monster from the grave. Then, when this card is sent from the field to the grave, it can add a possessed spell or trap from your deck to your hand. So kind of a lot going on, but really what you need to remember is just the fact that this card gets you to a link. If you can just set up the summoning requirements for him, he'll get you to a link to plus a search for a possessed spell or trap, which is a lot of times like 2 interruptions and like at least 1 or 2 follow-ups. Pretty good card. It is your 1 brick though, so don't draw it. All right, next up, Dogmatica package. You have to play this. This is so crazy. Remember when I said that the only downside about Luna is it doesn't have 1500 defense? Well, this card has 1500 defense, and we'll talk about later on why this card's crazy, but I don't really need to explain much more than that. It's a deck that can make a link 1, so she comes out really easily. She raises the ceiling of the deck. She raises your ability to play through hand traps, all that stuff. 1 Fleur-de-Lis, 1 Maximus. I really wanted to maximize on the ceiling potential of the Dogmatica package, so I am rolling with the Maximus. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And the Fleur-de-Lis helping you kill in a deck that sometimes can't amass a ton of damage in 1 turn is really nice, and also just extra disruption. Gotta love it. Triple Gamma, of course, the driver. We're not looking at him anymore because he disgusts me. But yeah. Gamma felt right. This was a slot where I definitely went back and forth on a couple different things. I thought about potentially playing like Dark Ruler No More or Droplet just as like a really high ceiling going second card, just to give the deck some decent 3 of, like to pair with like Extravagance to be able to dig for it. That like if we're going second, it gives us a chance to like really stun a board and be able to play through. But I feel like the deck wasn't offensive enough to really capitalize on Dark Rulering a board most of the time. Like you weren't going to clear like a legit giant board most of the time, and so I felt like sometimes the Dark Ruler would go unutilized. But Gamma feels really good. It's a hand trap. It's a high ceiling hand trap that actually is more impactful. It's pretty, I think it's like good versus like every matchup. You also have synergy with this. You guys know I never like to play Gamma in a deck unless I can trigger it on my turn, just via what the deck has already. So Triple Gamma went that route. Speaking of which, let's get to our spells. Triple Spirit Charmers. This card discards a card as cost to then take 1 Charmer, Familiar Possessed, or Possessed Spell or Trap, adds 1 to hand, sets another 1 from deck. So it's like activate, discard, search 2. Really, really good. This card is really strong in the deck, and this is an obvious Ash target. It discards for cost, so a lot of people are going to try to Ash this, which means if you have Gamma, punished. So great. Another great Ash target, Nadir Servant. I don't need to explain why this is a great Ash target. Good going first, good going second, easy to trigger Gamma. I love it. Triple Prosperity. Now this, I understand. Now this, you may have to change your build if you can't afford to play Prosperity right now. I get it, but this is the variant where I'm trying to build the deck as competitively as I can, and I think this card's just too good to pass up. Sometimes you have either a Spellcaster but no Earth, or an Earth but no Spellcaster, and so this card being able to just like fix that, either of them, or just grab really strong stuff like Solemn Strike, like you know, potentially Punishment, like you know, I don't know, just strong, just it's just consistent. I don't know. And like if you play Extravagance, you risk just drawing Nefarious or Archfiend, and that feels so bad, especially if you have combo in hand and not be able to do anything with it. It just sucks. 1 more Possessed spell that I play because it's really easily searchable is Awakening of the Possessed. This card's really cool. It has 3 main effects. When a Spellcaster with 1850 attack is normal summon or special summon, draw a card. I've had duels where I do this turn 1, do this on my opponent's turn, and do it on my turn. You literally just draw 3 over the course of 3 turns. It also makes all Charmers and Familiar Possessed indestructible by card effect, and all monsters you control gain 300 attack for every different attribute you control. So if you control 1, just 300 buff. 2, 600. 3, 900. 4, 1200. Crazy. Everything gets so big. Like Charmers with 4 different attributes on the board are over 3,000 attack. It's crazy. And then 1 called. Don't need to explain this. It's called. It's called. Just get over it. Next up here, for our trap lineup, double Solemn Strike. This could be something else. This could definitely be a flex spot. I just wanted a pretty powerful trap. We're going first. I felt good that I could set it. This could be Ash Blossom if you want. If you want to play something a little more mid-rangey, where it's a little bit, probably a little better going second, but probably worse going first. So it is what it is. I decided to grow with the strikes. Double copies of Possessed Partnership and 1 Unpossessed, rounding out our Possessed spell and trap targets. This card's crazy. It's really good. It can special summon any spellcaster with 1500 defense from hand or grave. This is the big reason why spellcaster with 1500 defense are so good. So it revives one from grave, and then if you have 2 different attribute monsters on your field, no matter what they are, you can non-targeting destroy any face-up card on the field. Really, really good. It also can banish itself from grave on a later turn to set a possessed continuous spell or trap back from grave. So that can reset Awakening or the Unpossessed, which is really good. There. So this is why Ecclesia having 1500 defense is so crazy, because you can just like go through it turn 1 and then revive it and then trigger Ecclesia's effect to like search Fleur-de-Lis on the opponent's turn. So even if you didn't go for Fleur-de-Lis, you could have gone for everything else. You still just search it on your opponent's turn in time to be live, and then you just kill them on the next turn. Really crazy card. It's interruption, it's follow-up. It can potentially be 2 interruptions if you're reborning Ecclesia. I love it. Also, this card's why I really wish that Luna had 1500 defense, because then you'd also have the benefit of being able to like reborn Luna. She wouldn't get her search because it's only on normal summon, but you'd be able to reborn Luna, pop a card, then still have Luna's bounce effect. But unfortunately, 1000 defense, not 15. And then Unpossessed. This card's also really cool, but you usually don't want it unless you already have access to partnerships. Because this card says if any monster you control is destroyed, you can special summon a spellcaster with 1500 defense with a different attribute from the monsters destroyed, which is really crazy. It also gives a 800 buff to Familiar Possess if they attack, and Charmers can't be destroyed by battle, so I guess your links can't be destroyed by battle. So pretty cool card. And this is the card that gives you cool synergy with the Archfiend, because you could pop something on your opponent's end phase to revive it, and that would trigger Unpossessed if it was face up to summon another monster from deck. And also don't forget, this card summons any spellcaster with 1500 defense, so you literally just summon Ecclesia out of the deck off of this and then search a Dogmatica card. Really cool. And the last traps we play is 1 Dogmatica Punishment and 1 Shaddoll Schism. I don't really need to talk about these, I don't think. This is really basic. This is if you're playing a little more high ceiling with the Dogmatica package, which we are, because I do think we do need to try and steal duels with Winda if we can. So too good to pass up. 40 in the main, trying to keep it pretty damn consistent, which it is, I'm not going to lie. Into the extra deck, starting off with 1 Artemis. This card is really important because sometimes you just need a way to put a spellcaster in grave so that you can use or complete Maximus's summoning condition. Also, it's still just a spellcaster, and your Nefarious or Archfiend just needs any spellcaster and a level 4 dark to send to summon himself. So no real consequence for making this card. Next up, we have the Charmer. So I'm on Earth, Light, and Wind. This makes stupid good sense just because the only ones I'm playing are the Earth, Light, and Wind ones. So, you know, don't really need to explain that too much. They all have decent targets in the metagame right now to be able to reborn. So do your best to take advantage of them. 1 copy of IP Masquerena and the Unicorn, of course. This is I think, correct. Your basic play with the Nefarious or Archfiend, so if all you do is just put the 2 monsters on the field, if you don't play this package, you pretty much just set up partnerships, which is fine, but not great. Whereas if you play this stuff, you can literally, like, after you use him and then revive a monster off of Archfiend, you can then make IP, which will trigger him to get partnerships. And now you have an IP, you'll revive a monster off partnerships to pop a card, and then you can use IP to link off with the monster you revived to make Unicorn on the opponent's turn. And then as long as you just had any discard fodder in hand, you have the spin on top of the pop. So it's 2 interruptions while also going into Unicorn, which is also why I play Access Code. I really play Access Code because when you set up this play, you pass turn with Unicorn on field, usually. If your opponent didn't like break through and clear it. And so you already just have to link 3, which means you literally just need to put any monster on board and you can get into the access code. So I felt like that made a lot of sense. And then also the one Selene. I think this card's also too good to pass up on. One more thing that you also don't want to forget is the Awakening of the Possessed draws a card when any 1850 Spellcaster is summoned, not just from the main deck. So if you just link into these, any of the Charmers or Selene, you still get to draw a card, which is really good. I've done it before where I've linked into Selene on my turn to draw a card, and then I use Selene's effect on my opponent's turn to revive one and draw a card on their turn too. Really, really good. Card definitely comes up. So that's it for the links. Everything feels pretty like staple to me. I guess if you don't want to play the high rolly stuff, you don't have to commit to like these if you don't want to. You could just keep it more control-y and play with some more stuff, because there were a couple other cards that I was considering trying to make room for, but just couldn't in the end. Then we get to the fusion stuff. This is just basic, you know, fusion shenanigans or dogmatica stuff. To double Intis to be able to send the one Titaniclad. Don't need to explain that. I am going all three with the Shadals. Playing the construct means in certain hands you just don't have to discard to like, you just maintain all your hand advantage while still setting up the win to play. So I felt like that was decent, but that's definitely a droppable slot. These are the only two mandatory ones. And then last card in the extra was Omega. I really wanted to make room for Omega. Before I put Gammas in, I had the Wind Pegasus in because it felt like a pretty good, just like extra kind of generic, just send target if I have another send off of the Dogmatica package. But I ended up going with Omega just because if I'm going to play Gamma and my deck has synergy to resolve it turn one, I really just want to punish my opponent for ashing me turn one. That's it. I really just want to have a payoff for playing that Gamma. And so if you summon this, you stop the hand trap, this will rip another card out of the hand, and you're ending on like 3 or 4 interruptions, like the duel's just over. So this is just the icing on the cake to like guarantee that it is. So really, really good there. A couple more things I want to mention though, as far as the side deck goes, or even the main deck, just some other things that I thought about but ended up not including in the end. I think Secret Village of the Spellcasters is disgusting in this deck. There's like no way you don't end on a Spellcaster, and if Imperial Order is really good, then you can only imagine how good Secret Village of the Spellcasters is. Secondly, Naturia Barkion is really, really interesting in this deck, and I'll tell you why. So if you do your combo to get Nefarious or Archfiend with Adhara, you pretty much send Adhara and a Spellcaster, whatever they are, it doesn't matter. Then you summon Nefarious or Archfiend, he revives the Adhara. There's no restriction from this point. And because Adhara is a tuner, you now have access to a level 6 Synchro, and these are both Earths. If Adhara was, well, not Adhara, I guess if Nefarious was level 4, I would have literally creamed my pants, because this would be... what is it? Naturia Beast. And so it is Barkion, so it is only specific to matchups, but like, hey, there's a lot of like trap Eldritch running around. So if you're in that matchup specifically, you could just side a Naturia Barkion for the whatever it is, 40-30% chance you open combo with the Adhara to just be able to just like outright win the duel, unless your opponent has exactly Solemn Strike. And even then, you still, by the way, are like setting up when you synchro off, get to search for partnerships. So you have a pop and like infinite trap negates. It's really crazy. I feel like there was one other thing that I want to mention. I mean, I probably side deck like Solemn Judgment just because this deck is kind of low ceiling, so you can just lose to like stupid stuff like Lightning Storm, evenly matched. So something that can just be like nope, not dealing with that. This duel could be pretty good. But yeah. That's pretty much it for the deck profile. The deck's really, really cool. I really enjoy it. And I also feel like there is potential here because of like the conditions of summoning from the deck. So there's like generic playability for some just like good extenders. Because Luna is like a crazy card, we could get support that like makes better use of her. And the fact that like Charmer searches so like your whole archetype. So any new archetypal cards this card searches feels really crazy. So I do feel like there's decent potential. We'll see when Konami ever feels like coming around to release more cards, but I think for now I'm pretty satisfied. I think this deck can perform this card can surprise some meta decks. Let's just say that. But yeah, that's going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on the deck list here. I'm just one guy trying to build this, so let me know if there's anything you would like to change about the deck and just your overall thoughts on the deck as well. I love hearing your guys' thoughts down there. But I'm going to get the hell out of here. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet, because I got more stuff coming. I got more ideas. The channel's only going to get better. I'm going to get better. And I hope you guys jump on for the ride. Thanks for watching. Peace.